So, on the last episode, we talked about the new home buyer who was building new construction and got ghosted by her agent. But for part two, we want to focus now on what went wrong with the in house lender. Specifically, her low interest rate that were bought with points that she didn't know about, and how her closing costs went up 15% from her estimate to her disclosure. Welcome to season 2 of the Real Estate Replay. This season, we're opening up the co-host chair to agents, lenders, and other professionals across the country. These handpicked co-hosts will help us dissect stories told by sellers and buyers and help point out the good, the bad, the unethical, or perhaps illegal things that they experienced. We'll learn what to look for, what to avoid, and how to not get screwed when selling or buying. Before we get started, just a quick update. The home buyer from Season 2, Episode 8, emailed me and told me that his agent, who kept refusing to put in offers for him, he dropped that agent, got a new one, and is already under contract for a new home because he found a much better agent to work with. So if you have a bad agent, you don't trust your agent, you don't feel like it's working well with your agent, drop them and get a new one because it's only going to work out to your benefit. All right, back to the original story for today. Part 2 of what went wrong on the buyer that got ghosted and the interest rate that was too good to be true. Here we go. So to help me, I have Shelly Prunkle with me today, who is my friend on TikTok, which I feel like I say that all the time now. I need to get a social life. So Shelly, if you could take like just 2 minutes to explain who you are and your background in the industry.
I'm licensed in 6 states on the East Coast because I believe everybody should be in the same time zone for the most part. I work for one of the largest brokerages in the country, Nexa Mortgage. We partner with over 190 lenders and add more constantly. And I'm a firm believer that nobody's ever denied a mortgage, sometimes that they're delayed.
And how long have you been in the mortgage side of the business?
I've been doing this since 2017.
Okay. And then you said you work a lot with veterans too?
Yes. My father was a 21-year Navy vet. So was my uncle, my grandfather. They were Army vets. I was supposed to go in, but I came up here, gained 20 pounds and couldn't go. So
yeah, no. I feel like we all gained weight over COVID and that's not going away. I'm just going to embrace it, right? All right.
No, this was during the blizzard in 95, 96.
Oh my, I remember that because you're on the other side of the state with me, right? Like, so I'm on one end and you're on the other.
Yes. And I'm originally from Florida and I came up here because my dad retired at a Wogo Naval Air Station and he was going to swear me in.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's talk about the first red flag from a lender perspective in the story. So this first-time homebuyer was told not to worry about meeting with a lender. How awful is that advice? And she specifically told the agent, I'm new at this. I'm not really sure what to do. Should I meet with a lender? And she said, no, don't worry about it right now. How awful is that? I'm baffled.
It's horrific and makes no sense because realtors need to know what the buyer's budget is so they know where to take them and kind of rein in when they're just like, oh, I want to see this $700,000 house, but their approval is for $300,000. You need to know what you can get pre-qualified for or pre-approved for before you can go shopping. So the fact that she said, that wasn't her first step of getting her pre-qualified or pre-approved, that's insane. How do you go shopping when you don't know what your budget is?
Yeah. I feel like this person, perhaps in my own opinion, already had a plan to push this person to a new building. Because that advice is just awful. I can't fathom. And there's so many things that you think you have an amazing credit score, but maybe there's 1 or 2 things you didn't know about, or like there's so many things that, even loan options. I know you were mentioning that you have like 100 and some different loan options. And I think that, in our brains, we look at conventional, FHA, VA, jumbo, and then that's it. So I don't think we really understand how many options there are out there. And that's not something you're going to know unless you're meeting with a lender, right?
Correct. And you have to find the right lender because not every lender is going to explain to you, hey, if we go this way, here's the pros and here's the cons. I just recently had a buyer who wanted to use the USDA loan and the property qualified and her income qualified, but USDA loans require a lower housing debt to income ratio. And she would have lost about $100,000 of buying power had we gone USDA. Not to mention, everybody talks about how there's no PMI on a USDA, and there is. It's just a yearly fee versus being monthly.
Oh,
see
I didn't know
if we
that.
see it the same way. So we went conventional with her because I'm like, it doesn't make sense for me to put you in this loan with a PMI, given where your credit score is and what you're looking to do.
But she wouldn't know that unless she talked to you. So red flag number one. All right, number two, builder incentives. Now, my husband and I built, and we fell for this. We were promised X amount. I think it was like 10,000 in upgrades, which I want to point out. And this buyer did mention to me, she was told up to 20K in incentives would be offered to her, and then found out it was based on your loan and your amount. And so she ended up with, I think, 9,000 that was actually offered to her. So it's almost that, I don't want to say bait and switch, but like you're offered up to, but that up to is never necessarily going to be what you're going to get.
So this is where it gets a little weird, because builder incentives, when the builder does incentives, they're not necessarily doing it as a seller assist. They're doing it as a discount on the materials being used on the property.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two ways that you can go as far as that's concerned. So the up to $20,000 could have been split between seller assist and discounts on whatever upgrade she was looking for. And usually that's the way that it works. So I'm not quite sure exactly what happened. That just sounds shady all the way around. Mm-hmm. And yes, the loan type does make a difference as to how much seller assist you can do. And then whether or not you can do seller credit on top of that, because a lot of people don't realize that there's a huge difference between seller assist, seller credit, and then you can also get a gift of equity.
Well, what's the difference between seller credit and seller assist?
Seller assist is assistance with closing costs.
Okay.
Seller credit can be utilized for anything. So it can be for like if a veteran has debts that they have to pay off in order to qualify for the loan.
Okay.
It can be utilized for that. And we've seen that on a couple things here and there. But most loan officers don't know how those things work and how to make sure they're in the contract so that they get taken the same way, because you can't go above 4% on seller assist, but you can go to anything you want to on seller credit.
Gotcha. Okay. And so then nothing is ever free. And so are there places where these credits, assists, incentives are padded elsewhere in the loan or in other services?
So loans are very incredibly hardcore regulated, and there is a high cost limit that hits when there's too many fees and too many other things put into it that sends off triggers, because it's going to cause an audit, it's going to cause a kickback, it's going to cause all sorts of issues. So when you see an additional padding, usually you might see an application fee, which if somebody's charging an application fee up front, run. In states like New Jersey, there's an application fee on your LE and CD because we're not allowed.
Which is so explain what that is.
An application fee? Oh,
no,
LE.
No. LE, so LE is the people know. Okay.
Yeah. LE is a loan estimate. It is not regulated. So although good loan officers are going to make it as accurate as possible, bad ones are just going to throw the basic information, the loan amount, the interest rate that they're looking at. You're not going to see title costs and things of that nature, not even estimated, not taxes, not homeowners insurance, none of that estimated. They're just going to send it out because they know that you're rate shopping. So they're going to make the rate look as good as possible. There should show some other information from the lender side of things, but that doesn't always happen. Okay. And I've seen that a lot. There's a few that I've seen them just like, why aren't they showing your property taxes? Why aren't they showing your homeowners insurance? Why aren't they showing your new escrow? Why aren't they showing these things in here? Versus your 1003, which is the full-on application, that's 31 to 56 pages worth of federally regulated disclosures that have to break everything down. This is your closing cost. This is your expected cash to close. That needs to be accurate. And even with that, I've seen them, like on a refinance, cut the property taxes in half. And I'm like, you can't do that. And you already know what the property taxes are.
You pay them. Yeah.
But I had a client who sat there and argued, but her payment's lower, but her interest rate's higher because, and it's working that way because she's not showing your proper escrow.
Right.
And she wound up going with that lender, had a problem, and called me, which I knew was going to happen.
Right.
Now your CD is your closing disclosure. Okay. And you're going to get one at least 3 days before you close because they have to give you time to take a look at it. And that's not even fully accurate because sometimes we haven't fully balanced when that comes out, but we want to not delay your closing. So a good LO is going to overestimate on how much you need on property taxes, how much you need on title, how much you need on homeowners insurance, although they should have had a quote by then. But as far as your new escrow built in, where you can see more padding though would be title and closing attorneys, because as far as I know, they're not fully regulated as to what they can charge for their services. And I see it all the time. So like New Jersey is an attorney state. Almost everybody in northern New Jersey gets a property line map done.
Okay.
Every single one of them. But southern Jersey, I don't see that happening all the time. They're not doing the land survey. And I see the land survey go anywhere from $800 to $2,500.
What? For the same thing?
For the same thing. And the same thing with the attorney's fees on top of your deed transfer, your title, tax, all that stuff.
Right.
But every single buyer can shop their title company or attorney. They don't.
And they should. It drives me nuts that they don't. I had someone who I had interviewed who got a pricing for title and shopped around, and they were like, wait a minute, like this one's like $500 more for a company that has really great reviews, who I know someone that's worked with before. Like, how is this $500 more for the same thing? The exact same thing. So for anyone listening, like, especially, I know every state's different. So like in Pennsylvania, typically from a title standpoint, the buyer's paying for that. I know some states, maybe it's different. So shop around. Absolutely shop around.
For my 6 states, it's always the buyer that's paying for it. And whether it be a title or an attorney, and you can use title or attorney in Pennsylvania. Some states like Delaware, you have to use an attorney. Mm-hmm. So that varies widely. But what happens for a lot of, especially first-time home buyers, is you don't realize that you can shop for that. Mm-hmm. And what's crazy is on a loan estimate or on a closing disclosure, it says, things that you can shop for. Right. And it says things that you can't shop for. You can't shop for an appraisal. The appraisal management company does that.
Right.
You can't shop for what it costs in order to pull your credit. You can't shop for what it's going to cost in order to pull your verification of employment. Those are pretty much for the most part set, unless we need like multiples. That's where it changes. Okay. Or it come out and do a reinspect. And even those costs, when I do an LE, I overestimate. Your average appraisal is about $550 for most of my areas. I always put in $675 because if they have to come out for a reinspect, it's another $125, $175 for them to do a reinspect. And this way I don't have to redisclose.
That makes sense. And it's funny too, you mentioned the title and things you can shop for. I always tell buyers like, hey, before you're like ready to jump into the market, start making a list of like home inspectors that you think are good, title companies, because I think insurance, because the inspection, the title, the insurance, you're already in this frenzy, you're already stressed, and you end up just kind of, it seems like taking who is mentioned to you because you don't want to think about it, which isn't necessarily going to be great for you. It could be more expensive for you. I mean, it could work out, but you don't know. So like I would 100% start making a list now of companies that you've seen, reviewed, want to understand, meet, before you start jumping into the market, because it would just make it so much easier for you to be like, nope, I already have an inspector. I'll call them when I'm ready, because it's last minute and it's ridiculous.
And you feel like you're in a hurry, and there's so many emotions. The moment you go under contract, the emotion just go postal.
Yeah.
But most of the realtors that I continue to work with, because I got rid of quite a few over the last few years, they usually give 3 to 5 contacts for home inspectors, and they're like, here's 3 to 5 people that I've worked with before. Go ahead and call around, see which one you want to use. They don't try to steer anybody anywhere. They say, look, I've dealt with these people. Same thing with title. They'll give them 3 to 5. And if somebody asks me, I give them the ones that I know. I have one title company that I do my fee sheet off of because I know they're the highest one, so I don't really use them for anything. Mm-hmm. But I can get a good idea of what would be overestimating for all the fees, and that way everything goes down by the time it gets to closing. So that's the other hard part too, is that if we've got somebody who's shopping a loan estimate, and you've got one person who's putting in the lowest possible title fees, not knowing yet, because we don't know until we get a fee sheet from that title company, and then you have another one who's overestimating, it's going to look like a lot different if nobody's explaining what's going on in those sheets. And a lot of people just send it out and go, here you go. Right. Like you can see the monthly payment, they see the cash to close, and they walk out the door.
So, all right. So this buyer was not, according to her, was not made aware when she got her loan estimate that they were using points to buy down her rate until she got maybe pretty close to closing, that she realized what was happening. Because I remember I told you that she had a 15% increase in what was due at closing, and she couldn't figure out why. So let's talk about advertised rates and points. So does a lender have to disclose to you that they used points to lower a rate?
Once they get to the CD, absolutely. And once they put together the 1003, now here's the thing. If I put together a 1003 today,
What's a 1003 before?
1003 is the full on application.
Gotcha.
If I put that together today, but you're not finding a house until 2 to 3 months from now or 2 to 3 weeks from now, that information, quite frankly, has adjusted based upon how the market has changed as far as rates are concerned. And, when you sent over the story, she said that she requested a lock, but a lot of builders, they can't lock early. Number one, the longest lock that I've ever seen is 180 days. And that costs you an upfront fee to lock that long. Number two, if you have delays after delays, now you're blowing rate locks, which can actually cost you more than not locking in the first place. Okay. So if I had to guess, this loan officer might have said, yes, I'll lock it, and then didn't lock it.
Okay.
Which is in most cases on a build, unless they're close to completion, they're not going to do it in case, let's say, a storm came and now they have to rebuild the entire house. Or let's say they have supply issues or the entire staff walks up. They don't know what delays that they're going to have. They might want the house to be built in 6 months to 12 months, but it could take 18 and 24.
What about like on a regular home? So an existing home, a rate lock, like, do you have to have it? Like you have to see their signature, correct? Like they have to sign off that you locked your rate, correct?
No, there's an email that gets sent out that says, here's your rate lock confirmation.
Okay.
So the documents I sent you yesterday, one of them was a rate lock that I did as soon as I sent the loan to the lender because I was locking that immediately. The other one, they didn't have a full complete contract, so I couldn't lock it until I had that, which is why you see a change of circumstance rate lock. Okay. That's your difference between those two, and that's why I sent them both to you.
Right. Okay. So going back to points. So when you get an estimate and they use points, they don't have to tell you?
They should, but no, they don't have to.
Right. They should, but okay, great. So
that mistake lots of times.
Oh, all right. So when you get an estimate, where am I looking to see if they used points?
So you're going to look at page 2.
Okay, which by the way, it's linked in, I'm going to have it linked into the commentary of the podcast. So there will be a link for you so people can get an idea of this estimate that we're talking about. So go ahead. So page 2.
And it's fully redacted so that none of my clients have to worry about their information being out there. But it's page 2, part A is what we're charging for anything.
Okay.
As far as your points, your origination fee, a lot of times that's where you'll see the application fee. And if there's an application fee in there, it doesn't mean that it's bad, only if they're asking for the money up front. Because what a lot of companies will do is they'll say, we have an application fee, we need $500. Well, guess what? That $500 is actually going towards your appraisal. But now you've given $500 and you feel like you're beholden to that lender and you can't shop anymore.
So unless you're committing to that lender, you don't need to pay the application fee, or unless they're going all the way in with your details.
Until you're at closing, you shouldn't have to pay an application fee.
Okay, gotcha.
You should pay nothing up front other than the appraisal, the home inspection, a pest inspection if you have to do that, and you're paying it directly to those people.
Okay.
Nothing concerning the loan outside of the appraisal should be paid before closing.
So application fees before you're at closing are a red flag.
Yes.
Got it.
Big red flag.
Right. Okay. So points, we know where to find them. Where else in like a loan estimate should we be looking for hidden or excessive fees, which I think you touched upon, which it would be things you can shop for. So that whole section, correct?
Correct. And then the things that you cannot shop for, most of those are going to be the same across the board. So the ones that you're using as the example, you'll notice that they're pretty much the same stuff all the way through. One client had like 6 jobs, so her verification of employment was higher because I had to get verification of employment for 6 jobs. Versus the other one only had 1 job. So those fees are going to vary a little bit based upon that. But, seeing an underwriting fee isn't abnormal. Seeing an origination fee isn't abnormal. Sometimes they'll call an origination fee when it's actually points. There's just all different ways in order to do it. So you want to look at section A and you want to look at section B and then section C. Section C is all your title stuff. Okay. And there's some stuff that's going to make sense, but if you feel afraid to ask questions to your realtor or your loan officer, they are not the fit to you.
Right. Right.
They are there. We are here to answer questions. I tell my clients, you can text me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not answering it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I do need to sleep and I do have a kid.
Right. Right.
But my phone sits nowhere near me. So you don't have to wait for the polite times in order to contact me to ask your question, because there's nothing worse than coming up with a good question and going, I don't want to bother someone. Ask the question. Just ask.
Right. Do it. Yeah. Because you'll pay for it later if you don't. Let's talk about the 15% discrepancy in her closing costs versus what her estimate had. Playing a guessing game, you've read her story. How in the world would it increase that much? And then the second part to that is even with normal loans, what are some things that would trigger that? So for her case, what would make it that much more different?
Well, for her case, like I said, I don't think that they locked her loan. I don't think that they could, but rather than telling her that and explaining it, they just said, yeah, and just kept going. And we know how much rates have been bouncing so much. So,
right.
That's a big jump. If they're keeping the rate the same, instead of saying, hey, look, I need to bounce the rate just a little bit. Here's why. So now you've got points being added in that she didn't see before. If I had to guess, I would say this person also didn't estimate property taxes or homeowners insurance. And any LO who's worth their salt knows for their areas what property taxes are on average. So for me, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, I always figure about $1,500 a year because that's what the average is. Florida, I figure about $2,500, and sometimes it'll come in at about 15. But if I figure high, it goes down. Nobody gets mad at me. Somebody gets a quote.
Right, they're happy.
Yes, and on a new build, they should turn around and told her flat out, "Hey, look, do me a favor, go get a quote because it's a new build. That's an easy one to do. It's not like we're searching for a house; we're just waiting for it to be built." The property taxes on a new build are a little bit more difficult because if it's raw land, there's no tax history. So you have to pull up the surrounding areas for similar houses and estimate, and then I would add an extra $500. I guarantee you the loan estimate she originally received didn't have any property taxes or homeowners insurance. So when she got to the end of it and got the closing disclosure, now you have a year's worth of homeowners insurance, 3 months worth of homeowners insurance for the new escrow account. Now you've also got 6 to 8 months worth of property taxes, depending upon how close you are to the school bill being paid, and then another 3 months on top of that. So I guarantee you that's where most of it is. If they're not adding a ton on title fees that aren't supposed to be there.
Okay.
And that would be something I'd want to see. But depending upon the state, I mean, I'm in Delaware County, Pennsylvania physically, and there's houses that are about $250,000 that are looking at $14,000 in property taxes. But in Philly, they're only $4,000.
Right.
So that's a big chunk.
Right. And, maybe it's my area too, but I just want to mention when we built, we got reassessed within that first year. So if you're building, prepare yourself. Maybe it's just the great state of Pennsylvania that we live in. Maybe it's my county, but you might trigger a reassessment. So prepare yourself for that if you're building.
So even an existing home, if somebody is putting an offer in on a house and I see that house isn't sold in 7 to 10 years, I'm going to let them know your property taxes are probably going to increase by about this much.
Right.
Because they're reassessed based off the new purchase price.
Right. Something will trigger it. They're coming for you. What is one thing you wish buyers knew or homeowners refinancing knew? I would love to say for you that if your loan estimate doesn't include property taxes, homeowners insurance, or is by adding some extra cost and points, probably not a good person to get an estimate from. But in your opinion, it could be something that drives you crazy. It could be a misunderstanding, or it could just be a personal irk that drives you crazy.
There's two things. If you don't like the person that you're dealing with, whether it be a loan officer or a realtor, if you don't want to go hang out with that person and go have a cup of coffee, you shouldn't be working with them because you're not going to feel comfortable enough in order to ask the questions that you need to ask.
Right.
It's hard. Unfortunately, it's very hard for anybody to look at loan estimates and be able to compare them easily and see them, right? Because there are so many different ways that they can be done. But my biggest pet peeve on the planet is people thinking that they cannot get approved for a mortgage. There is a loan for everybody. Sometimes you are not ready right at this moment. We need to do a little work. That's why I always say you're never denied, you're sometimes delayed, because there is a path to home ownership. Sometimes it's just a little bit more work than you think. But right now we've got multi-generations of people who nobody they know has ever owned a house. So they don't even bother trying because they just automatically think they're going to be denied.
Right.
It's drives me insane.
Right. And I think, and if you open my eyes too, there are so many more options outside of the general loans that we're typically told about. So I think that's important too. If you're unsure, you really need to find someone who really has a big understanding of options. And in my personal opinion, it's typically not coming from an online lender. That's my personal opinion, but a local lender that can understand and really educate you on what's happening, I feel like is the way to go for especially first-time home buyers.
So that's where I have a little bit of a glitch, because what people call local versus what they're actually referring to is two different things.
Right. So local, when I say local, I mean like they don't have to be specifically in your city, but I don't know how to describe this.
You and I are what, 6 to 8 hours apart from each other.
Right. But I would still count you as like a local, right? Like,
but when you say local to especially a first-time home buyer, they're thinking they're Wells Fargo down the street. And what they don't realize is that Wells Fargo doesn't do the loan in that office. The person you're talking to doesn't know regulations. They don't know guidelines. They just know how to take an application, and then it gets sent off to 5 other departments. To me, one of the best things anybody can do, and I don't care if you're a realtor, I don't care if you're a title person, I don't care if you're a first-time home buyer. You want to go to the consumer NMLS and type in the name of whatever loan officer you're getting ready to work with. You can see my 10-year work history. You can see how many times I've changed brokerages. You can see every job that I did before I became a loan officer.
Oh.
You can see if I've had anything put against me. You can also see if I'm state licensed or if I'm federally licensed. I'm state licensed, and anybody who's state licensed, they have to know what's going on in that specific state.
Okay.
They have to go through renewals every single year. They have to spend, like I had to spend 17 hours in continuing education to get my renewals, versus somebody who's federally licensed. They're running off the bank's license. They don't have to know anything. They're not responsible for anything that they do. They don't, if I do something wrong, I'm the one going to jail. I'm the one paying the $10,000 fine.
Right.
If Wells Fargo does it, Wells Fargo is paying the billions of dollars in fines. Wells Fargo's taking the hit for it. Wells Fargo has all the issues on it. No, I mean, the biggest thing is that people need to learn to trust their gut. I mean, somebody can speak with authority, and a lot of people on my side of the desk can speak with authority, but they don't actually know anything.
Right.
And especially our veteran buyers, because there's so much misinformation out there for veterans. It drives me insane. I've done multiple videos on it, because it's easiest loan on the planet to get through, and one of the fastest for me to close. But there's just, if somebody doesn't know the regulations and they're not originating the loan themselves, and what I mean by originating is they're not gathering the documents, they're not reading through it, they're not, really putting it all together, and all they're doing is taking an application. Like, there's a big lender who does a lot of advertising for the Super Bowl, that has their hands in a lot of pots, and what makes them so difficult is the person that you're originally speaking to do your loan. All they know how to do is take the application, then they hand it off to somebody else who reads the application, who then hands it off to somebody else to gather documents, who then hands it off to somebody else to actually and it's just so many layers, and layer A doesn't know what layer Z is doing. Versus if you're dealing with like a mortgage broker like myself, I'm taking the loan from beginning to end. Yes, I have a team, I have a processor, I have title companies, I have assistants and things of that nature, but I'm the one who's going over everything. I'm the one who's reading everything. I'm the one who's double checking everything.
Right.
And because as like most loan officers, I'm very bad at reading tax returns, because there's 750 ways to do it. I have an underwriting team that I send tax returns to, and they tell me what I can use so that I make sure I'm as accurate as possible.
All right. On that note, I got a lot of editing to do, but thank you for your time.
Not a problem.
Have a story you think would help future sellers and buyers, or have a question about how everything works? Reach out to us at realestateforconsumers.com.